Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. Jake Koenig, Justin Graham here. We've got a dual recap on deck for you all today to talk about the two latest matches that the boys in St. Louis City SC Red have played recently with Minnesota and Aston Villa. 2-1 losses, both of them, Justin, but very different losses against very, very different opposition. But I'd be remiss. We're not live today, unfortunately, so I won't be able to pull in any comments and takes from you all. But I think we'll anticipate some as we go throughout some of these topics and questions that we've littered in here. But Justin, how we doing? How we feeling? This is day after Aston Villa friendly time of recording. How'd you feel last night? It was obviously great to be there as the weather broke finally. Like that was one of the biggest highlights of the match for me.
That was so weird. It was like 90, 92 when we were walking up to the stadium. And then I think by the time it ended, it was like 78 degrees and everybody saw it. City put out a pretty cool picture with Aston Villa. And then hopefully everybody enjoyed our picture with Mr. Tim Parker looking down on us with Chubbs and the alligator. That was hilarious. But no, it was cool. It was still something you need to like take a step back. We'll talk about a little bit more on Aston Villa and the team, but like having a truly an English Premier League team. And yes, Aston Villa is not your Man U, your Chelsea, your Arsenal, things like that. But this team has been very, very good in the past like 3 or 4 seasons in the EPL, and they're continuing to grow. So, but Jake, before we hop into that, before we hop into Minnesota, I'm going to do a quick what are you watching? Because there's still a lot of soccer going on right now, even though we're not going to be playing for the next 10 or so days. But for anybody that can't see the screen, the two things you need to be aware of right now is we have the Leagues Cup going on. And currently that is 6 games every night. And that's some of the top teams in the MLS. This obviously based on last season, but still top teams this season for the majority of them. And then playing against some of the top teams in La Liga. So if you look at this, Jake, the cool thing about it for anybody that forgot about Leagues Cup is that even though with the 6 games that are going on each night, if you were tied after 90 minutes, you go straight to PKs. So last night, I turned the game on after I got back from Aston Villa. It was Club America versus Real Salt Lake. Club America scored with 20 seconds left in stoppage and then straight into PKs. Just an awesome kind of way to end it and turn it around. So there's been 12 games so far. 5 of them have gone straight to PKs, which is a very cool thing to see. And then also if you want to tune into a little bit more of a higher level of soccer, I would say, with the EPL, but it's also their spring season, training season. You have the Premier League Summer Series that's been going on. So that includes Everton, Bournemouth, West Ham, and Man U. They're doing like a round robin per se. So 4 games are through of their 6 total. Their last matches will be on Sunday at 1 p.m. where you have Bournemouth versus West Ham and Man U versus Everton. So a lot of fun soccer going on, even though we're not really truly a part of it, even though we got to play Aston Villa last night.
Justin, fun fact, you mentioned that Premier League series. You said it was Man U, West Ham, Everton, and Bournemouth?
Yep.
Who finished the least? Who finished the lowest in the table last season in the Premier League of those 4 teams? Just take a guess.
Man U, Jake.
And United. And that is unbelievable. I love to say, I love that you were teeing up Aston Villa. Like, they're not your Man U's. I'm like, Man U is not your Man U's anymore either.
Okay, but for casual soccer.
No, I know. Yeah.
But I'm
like, no, it's a good shout because no, Villa is, and we'll talk about Villa before we kind of break down the game. But it's recently a good team in Europe. I know people like to just spout that off about any team that comes from Europe, but Critch mentioned it last night too. I mean, this is a team at the peak of its recent powers in terms of standing. So it was fun to welcome them to St. Louis here. So I love that.
Anybody that doesn't know, Jake's a huge Arsenal fan, and I believe he knows that, yes, I don't follow EPL as strongly for an individual team, but if I were to pick one, it's Manchester United. So that was just a slight dig, even though he's just like, oh, who do you think finished worst out of these teams that are not the historics? I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, tough days. Probably a tough day if you were a really devout follower, Justin. I mean, soccer-wise, tough fandom days for you right now between City and Man United. I mean, just brutal. But we'll leave that there for now, and we'll crack into the Schmidtgens Injury Law Firm Ball Watching STL Injury Reports, brought to you by our friend Rob Schmidtgens. Unlike the boys in red, the injury off the pitch shouldn't upend your life. The Schmidtgens Injury Law Firm fights to obtain fair compensation for people who have been injured in car wrecks, trip and fall cases, and on the job. If you or anyone you know have been injured, give Rob a call at 314-222-4223 to discuss your case. Mention us, mention Ball Watching for a free consultation, and you will not pay unless Rob wins your case. So make sure you give him a call or check him out at www.hurtinstl.com. Remember, the choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely on advertisements.
And Jake, I want to give a quick plug for him as well. This, it seems like a very like, oh, here's an ad read. It's because, yes, it is a part of a lawyer. But Rob is a very just personal guy. If you guys see him around, you'll see his picture, and he's always at the games in the supporter section, drinking beers with everybody. So he is just a good guy to be around. So just like, yes, we're doing a promotion for him as he is a sponsor of ours, but just reach out to Rob truly if you have anything that happens with you or your family for hurtinstl.com. But Jake, now on a kind of the flip side, whenever Rob reached out, it's like we just kept adding injuries. It's like he was paying them for this to get the list longer. We're starting to get a lot shorter though, in a positive way.
Yeah, a lot of injuries on the job for the City Boys. But no, the list is getting shorter, which is exciting. We've got 3 guys that were ruled out of the match against Minnesota. I can't really, take an Aston Villa report because it was like everyone dressed for that besides the boys that were out. But Winslow still out with a hammy, Kessler still out with a hammy, Nilsson out for whenever they want to speak his name into existence again. So, of course, all 3 of those are also center backs, which is where I think we could use a bolstering. I think having a Kessler or Nilsson available right now, from a roster selection, there's no excuses, right? Like you've got everyone in terms of quality available that you should have. And some of the more recent ones have come to mind that I think have made a big impact to the squad. Like Leuven being back has been massive, like absolutely massive. I thought he's been one of the highlights even these last couple games, just helping the team drive forward. But it's good to see this dwindle down, right, Justin? It gives you hope that we're managing these a little more correctly. I think it's a little bit too late as well, right? Given the season's pretty much come and gone for the most part for us. But, again, positive signs. I'm happy. I'm hoping that this, week or so break that you might have already teed up here, Justin, between now and Nashville, not being this weekend, but next weekend, can give you more time to hopefully blood these players back into the team before the end of the season so they can take the off-season rest and then get ready to go, all guns blazing for 26.
Jake, you mentioned that we're short in center back. I think you forgot that Durkin's a center back now. or he was, because he will not play soccer for 3 weeks straight. All right, and we'll talk about that right now. What happened in the Minnesota game? So we'll start with the Hoffman brothers starting 11. Obviously, we're still having Berkey in the back, and you go from left side to right. We have how do you say? Is it Paddleford? Because I've been hearing Padelford a lot as well.
I honestly have not done the due diligence that I should have. I would definitely have gone Paddleford, but I do not know.
I'm going to go Padelford. Padelford, Orozco, Baumgartel, and Vollum across the back line. In front of them with a Leuven Ostrak, which to your point, obviously Leuven is a mainstay, and Ostrak has been playing a lot better there. We have some tweaks that we'll talk about in these last 2 games. But then Celio, Hartel, and Sangbin. I also kept going Sangbin, but it's Sangbin. And then Joao Klaus up top. So I really do appreciate that front 4. Obviously, Toy Shirt has not been up to snuff as of recent. We'll talk about how that might have changed a little bit last night. But otherwise, this is what I would say is truly our best 11 that is healthy at this time, which is not something that we've consistently seen over the multiple managers that we've had.
Which is, I by the way, I fully agree, Justin. I think it's a little bit shocking, and maybe people might feel like it's a slight against one of Totland or Durkin if he's fully available. But I actually agree. I think I look at this roster, I look at the 11, and I see balance, right? Like, especially how it played out, right? Because you see, I'm just going to call him DP. DP, running up and down that left flank, looking good on defense, but also making those underlapping and overlapping runs with Celio, who brings you that 1v1 type presence that we don't really have much of on the team. Orozco and Baumgartel. Orozco maybe the fringiest of the 11, I would say at this point, because another big mistake in this match, 2 in a row the last 2 weeks. No, he's a young guy. We'll talk about that. Timo and him, can both play the ball comfortably at their feet, which is nice. Not always usual for center backs, but Wallum, again, we'll talk about him. He might have played a match or 2 on the right this season, but seeing this one play out, I like this and his play in Aston Villa, just comfortable on the ball. I think when you're playing against a team that isn't just possession heavy, he can provide a really good resource and asset along the right side to help, let, Sangbin really travel up and down that right flank and play as a true right winger like he wants to. Leuven Ostrak, you can do that. You can play without a Durkin. You can play without a Watts. You can play without more of a holding midfielder because, Minnesota's not going to come in here and try to possess the entire match. So you can be a little more progressive in terms of how you line up. But I liked it. I think Critch, it tells me that Critch is doing his homework. He's doing his scouting. He's doing his listening. And he's molding the team in the shape of a force that can hopefully generate results against a team that he understands how they play.
Yeah, and I said best starting 11 at this time. I will say I would appreciate seeing Totland out there. Obviously, I think Devin Padelford has been playing very well in the 2 games that we have seen. However, I don't think he's going to be our long-term guy. Obviously on a loan, did not have a lot of minutes. Maybe he's got a little bit of confidence coming straight from Minnesota and straight into the starting 11 for 2 games straight. But I would ultimately like to see Totland on the right. Maybe you put Vollen back on the left. And then we make that decision on what goes with Orozco as you get Falou Fall to come in there with Baumgartel, or you get Kessler or Nilsson healthy. But Totland, I still, as in my opinion, needs to be our right back. I appreciated seeing Vollen right here and doing this, but it gives us a little bit more levelness of the field tilt, because I feel like from field tilt, we always say going towards a goal here or there. Our field tilt is for sure just upper left. We've always gone down that Celio left side. We've stayed away from the right side, whether it be Kyle Hebert or Watts or anybody playing there. Or if you even have Betcher out on the right, it's not as creative as a Celio. So I feel like the field tilt was always on the left for us. So Vollen kind of helps balance that out with Sengbin now. But from a defensive perspective, I'd like to see Totland. But Jake, that's enough about the starting 11. What were your thoughts on this first half? Because in my opinion, we both, without us knowing it, we had 2 separate docs going that we then merged. I had one highlight in here that you didn't have, but the first half was exciting for us.
Yeah, it was one of the better halves I think we've seen. We saw a team that came out with hunger, came out composed, did not fear Minnesota in the slightest, gave them respect for sure, but really kept them quiet on the offensive side for most of that first half. And we had some great, strong, direct chance, creation and things that we look back on that definitely hamstrung us because we did not finish. But I have in here a couple of early highlights in the 8th, 12th, even 18th minute with Wallen. By the way, the balls, I keep wanting to say balls, but his ability to play a back post cross with lethal accuracy, good pace. He's doing it game after game now. He played amazing, just a peach of a back post cross to an oncoming, I think it was Celio who volleyed wide from the near post. And had another one last night against Villa. Celio also could not convert that one. Baumgartel can play some extremely, incredible, just forward lofted balls as well for our attackers. And he played one of those to Klaus, who took a great touchdown and ripped it on frame with his left foot. Leuven can also do this as well. I'm seeing, you're hearing all the long is the theme here. Everyone's playing these direct diagonals, direct over the top of the defense to go to oncoming or on-running attackers like Sengbin, who we know wants to stretch defenses. We know that he's really fast. He can get in behind and time his runs well. Leuven played a peach in the 18th minute to him, who, again, timed his run perfectly in behind to stay onside, brought it down incredibly. That first touch was just sumptuous. And then he snapped on a shot, barely missing, just fizzing past that post. And so you're seeing this new life immediately brought onto you. And even Padelford getting in on the mix, playing some extremely composed crosses of his own in the 22nd. After Celio got shut out, he lifted a back post cross to Klaus, who headed it on frame, did the hard work, and then clear off the goal line. So Justin, you're seeing this, you're like, hey, 20 minutes in, this team is clamoring for a goal. They're doing everything they can to put this ball in the back of the net against Minnesota, who's a pretty solid defensive team in the league.
Yeah, Jake, I think this is one where I think we just the theme of the first half in these first 30 minutes or so. As you can see, here's where Celio drops it back. Padelford steps up, quick around the guy. Nice, perfectly little clip ball to the back post to a Klaus, who hammers it towards the goal. Cleared off the goal line by the defender. But overall, the theme here, Jake, is that we were playing direct, and I really appreciate how strong we came out in the first half. But it's a theme that we've also seen throughout the season. You got to find a way to put one away. Yep. Yes, we're going to get one there on a later PK that we'll touch on here in a sec. But just through the run of play, the confidence of these guys, we're creating the chances. The mindset, when you put a team like that on Minnesota down, you think about the fans at City Park. They're clamoring, absolutely waiting for us to put one away. And then you could put Minnesota away completely. If you score one of these goals in the first 20 minutes, we have to find that finishing touch, and hopefully it will come. But right now, we just haven't seen it this season.
Yeah, and obviously our goal didn't come from any of those. It came from a corner that had been, brought down, recirculated by Sengbin, and then Ostrak did it, well enough to draw some contact and eventually a foul in the box. It wasn't, the clearest or the most obvious of PKs, but there was contact there, and he sold it. And Leuven drives that home with authority, which felt nice as well. Lifted the roof off Energizer Park there. But again, I agree, Justin. That PK isn't really in theme with how that first half went for us. We were definitely down their throats in the final third trying to cause havoc and score goals, but that goal wasn't the result of one of those sequences for us. And if you add a goal before that, or this is the first and then you get another one before halftime, I think Minnesota's got a lot more to consider heading into the locker room, because that first half, we were doing such a great job really swallowing up those ball recoveries or dispossessing Minnesota, just making them uncomfortable. And there was tons of wide play from us, either working in crosses or from set pieces. Again, the ball distribution, the long balls, the crosses, it just felt like we said, okay, Minnesota, fine, clog up the middle. We don't need that. We have precision in our passing. We have precision in our crossing. And we have long throws from Padelford, who we're going to create our own danger either way. If you clog up the middle, fine. We'll take it from wide areas and we'll go that way, because we have beasts in the middle of the park that will look for these services. So you look in at the first half, you say, okay, it's 1-0, comfortable, but not that comfortable knowing where we've come from this season and how many points we've dropped from a winning position. And Minnesota has not brought their best to this game yet. And the second half, maybe the last 30 to 40 minutes of the second half, is just where we go wrong. And where we've seen themes from this season is just you take the foot off the pedal. I'll start there, Justin, let you kind of give your 2 cents in the second half.
Yeah, so I think it's a mind shift change that I really don't want these guys to have going in the locker room. It's like it reminds me every time, Jake, of when we had the U.S. men's national team. And you had Berhalter saying, hey, it's 1-1. It's 1-1. Like, just make sure that all you got to do is get out of here with a draw. Just don't let that concede. That's not the mindset you can have when you're up 1-0, especially in a season that we're having. You got to step on their throat to put this away. However, we came out of the second half and we went into a low block. We went defensive. We kept it way too cautious. I would like for these guys to be flying these guys. Let's try to see if we can get 2-3 on them. Because guess what? A 1 goal, like I'd love to see the stats, Jake. How many games have we won this season on a 1-0 win? I would say maybe one. Well, one. Yeah. We only have like 6 wins, period. So I highly doubt that it's happened that often. So you can't get into that low block and expect 1 goal to win you a game. And Jake, this is another thing that comes into it, is the subs that were made. In the 62nd minute, we have Betcher for Sangbin. Completely fine with me. I think that's a guy that probably Sangbin extremely excited to play for against his former club. Probably ran himself into the ground a little bit too quick with that energy and excitement. Completely fine to get Betcher in there with legs. The other one here is Durkin for Padelford. Not a bad sub. The only thing I dislike about that, though, Jake, is why did then Durkin go straight to the center back position? This is his first minute since May 31st, and we decided in that moment to put him at center back, where if you're a half step slow or just make a quick mistake, it leads directly to a goal. And we have JGR and Hebert, who are truly center backs, on the bench. So playing a guy that is rusty and out of position is going to end up hurting you. But Jake, I saw you were kind of looking at this. Do we have a single 1-0 win this season?
We have one. It was in March against Seattle. So really early on, we were different. We were defensively very astute at that time. So I can see how that happened. But again, we are not a 1-0 type of team. And I think Critchley should know that as well. And I agree. It just... yeah, the mentality was different. It was like, okay, we got our goal. Now let's see this one out. And I'm like, okay, well, there's also still 45 minutes left, and they have not looked their self today either. So they're going to bring some pressure, and they did. And we gave this one to them, frankly, with the Durkin, mistake, like you said. Bringing in Durkin, I know he's had a good game or two at center back for us this season. That was, you mentioned it last night, Justin. That's fine when he's in form. He's fit. He's mentally there. You cannot pick a guy off the bench that does not play this natural position and throw him in this high stakes, really tight marginal game against Minnesota and expect him to just thrive and just, eat the moment, just be a part of it. And he gets done. He gets done. And it's clear for me. He gets, it's a situation where Yeboah brings, a good striker threat in the box. He gets beat on the initial sort of head ball, or Baumgartel gets beat on the initial head ball. And Durkin now has the positioning, the right positioning in terms of getting back towards Berkey to maybe head it back or head it away. And he looks over one of his shoulders to see if there's an oncoming, challenger for this next duel that he's about to have. And he doesn't look over the other shoulder where Yeboah is now closing. And Yeboah beats him to it. He grabs a lot of shirt, a lot of contact. For me, it's clear denial of goal scoring opportunity, or dog so you might see. And Yeboah does well to shake, Berkey off the line for the PK and finishes. I think this is just a big mistake, a lapse that occurred, before in terms of personnel selection for this. Durkin, clear red card. And Justin, you said this last night. He's not going to play for a long time now. And remember, he was out for 2 months before this?
2 months before this. And so this happened on this past Saturday. We are obviously off this Saturday. He was out the next Saturday. So it'll be 3 full weeks before he gets truly minutes that are meaningful again. Yes, he played against Aston Villa, but he had another yellow card that we'll touch on where he just absolutely pulled the guy down. It's like, What are you doing? Especially in like a friendly like that, just unnecessary. I understand trying to stop a counterattack, just not needed. But Jake, just real quick as I share screens, he's in a good positioning here with Baumgartel. They have Yobo between them. I think is completely fine for the ball coming in. Ball comes short. I think this is fine. However, this is where Durkin playing as center back when he's a center defensive mid is where it goes wrong. You can see he goes, oh, look, ball, and runs directly to it. You got to leave Baumgartel with him here. He closes this gap, and look, now he's within 3 feet of the other center back, and you cannot have that. Yes, it's a little bit of a lucky bounce that goes over his head, but then he can't recover in time because Yobo is way quicker. He knows where he's going with this. Durkin gets beat. You don't have to pull him down there. I think this is one where you have to make sure that, yes, typically in his position, if he's a center defensive mid, great, pull him down there. Usually 30 yards from the goal, not going to be a problem. But if you're a center back, completely different mindset, makes a lapse in judgment. And yeah, Durkin obviously wants that one back. This is a tough one. It's got to be terrible for his mindset being out for the past 2 months. And then you come in for 9 minutes and get a red card. But unfortunately, that's a position that we put him in and putting him in at center back.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's a symptom of the larger problem. I think what we're saying is, again, it's just the shift in mentality. This team has not been able to complete a full performance for 90 minutes or 90 plus whatever injury time this season. And it happens time and time again to us that either we just don't have it in our legs or we switch off mentally. They get another goal via a very young, youthful mistake. And that comes in the 88th minute via Orozco, who has a clear handball. They're just a normal run-of-the-mill cross. And I don't know how to really explain it, Justin, other than, when everyone's jumping up, everyone's got different body positions, right? Like you generate momentum, you generate power, and you thrust your limbs in the air. And usually maybe you might use your arms to kind of do that initial jolt or jump up, and then you kind of bring them back down. Orozco didn't. Wasn't called at the moment, and we got that all cleared. And then VAR came back and turned this one around for a clear and obvious error for Orozco having his hands up, above his head, trying to play or field across. And so I'm at the point with him where I've liked him. I think it's been good. I do not think he is the next coming center back for us. And I think that's now two costly mistakes in back-to-back games. And I think the moment, for me, it's that spot is not his anymore. Like, I don't think it was very much cemented his before that, but he was playing well enough to kind of warrant consideration on 11. And so I've seen enough here where if he does not improve that, I think you've got to lean on someone else that has maybe a little more composure under fire in those moments to lean on in these moments. I think JGR probably was the right person to put in ahead of Durkin. I know eventually he got onto the field, but that mistake from Orozco, following up on the mistake from the prior week, it just looks rough. And you can expect some of that from youth players, but still.
Yeah, but I think now it's going to be an easier decision with Fallu Fall coming in. He'll be right next to Baumgartel, and then you could have that Hebert, Yarrow, God forbid, and then you also have Kessler and Nilsson coming back. So Orozco is kind of also finding his place out of this. And then if you wanted to shift him to left back, I think that's where actually he'll now be behind a Padelford and or Vollum. And then because I think Tola needs to be the mainstay at the right. So I think Orozco is going to find his way back onto City 2. Unfortunately, just with the way that the play has happened, and then also with the personnel coming back. So one thing I did want to mention, Jake, was the absolute confusion on that VAR. When they went to VAR, we were looking around, we're like, they're reviewing for a penalty. We thought it was for us, in favor of us, because they went back, it was 3 minutes ago that happened. And we're like, wait, did there something that we missed, right in front of us? We were sitting in the Ultra Club, and I was very confused. So no clue what was going on there. And yeah, if you're a Orozco, you can't have your hands up. I don't care how high you're trying to jump, but they don't need to be up that high. But Jake, otherwise there was 2 other highlights that we had right before the end of the game. Anything else you want to mention?
No, I'll just mention that we had 1 shot on target in the second half. They scored 2 goals there. They were polar opposite halves for us. We had the possession domination the first half. We gave everything to Minnesota the second half, and they made us pay for it. We had 1 shot on target. I think that was 0.04 expected goals from Toyshirt and then 90 plus 8. It's embarrassing, frankly, that we keep doing this to ourselves, and you let Minnesota slip away and you gave them all 3 points. So no excuses. Really poor match, really frustrating. Great first half, but a great first half does not translate to points. And we've learned it the hard way time and time again this season. So I was curious to see what the boys would take into this next match, Justin, against Aston Villa, because frankly, on paper, it's like, this is not ideal. I was a little bit worried about getting mopped up by Aston Villa on the way to this match, because we talked about them. They're an old historic club founded 150 years before us in 1874. And again, they're not your premier type of European or Premier League team when you think about name brand, but this has been a strong side in the league the last 3 seasons, finishing 7th, 4th, and 6th. And that squad value, Justin, you pulled this in here. Starting 11 for them last night was $305 million, compared against us, who I believe we have a $40 million value of our starting 11, and they have players that are worth on their own the whole of our roster. So it's apples and oranges, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say, Jake, and also as I pulled in that $305 million, just a reminder that Tristan Rowe that started for them is actually on their U21 team, and who does not have a market value even set. And you know that if they're starting a U21 player, he's probably got like a $15, $20 million market value. So $305 million was the other 10 guys on the field, averaging $30 million, obviously with Martinez and net, who was the most recent World Cup winner with Argentina. So just from a sheer sense of soccer and value of a squad, it didn't seem like we stood a chance. But Jake, that was kind of why we thought that we were going to need our starting 22 that was going to be going out there. And I thought we would have had a chance. And Jake, I do want to give myself a little bit of props here. Of the 22 guys that I have showing here, on the 11 that we started and the 11 that we brought in at halftime, I was only off by one dude.
Ooh.
And that was Caden Glover I had on here. But you know who was in for him? And I'm very thankful that it was Mick Sorley.
Oh,
he looked awesome last night.
Yeah, he looked up to it. And I love that. I want to talk more about that too, because again, Aston Villa comes in here having a great season. You know, they finished 6th in the Premier League. They had 3 wins against the Big Six this past season, and they played in the Champions League through the quarterfinals, where they were eliminated by PSG, but they did beat PSG in one of those legs, and PSG have obviously eventual winners. So also FA Cup semifinalists. So when you think about how you market this, how you promote this, again, Aston Villa, not the name brand, but in terms of form and, European, glory right now, or just prominence, they're in a really good spot. So I was really happy to come see them, play against us and start with a really solid 11 as well. I mean, they played much of their, I'd say, top quality players in that first 11, with more coming in the second half. But we did as well. We started with an unchanged 11. And I liked the approach because we gave that first 11 45 minutes, and you totally changed things in the second half. But what you see in the first half, Justin, I think I saw a continuation of some positive things from the last match. And where I want to go with that is, you're talking about dynamic between Wallum and Totland, and then Sangbin on the right versus Celio. I think if you're going to play, I'll talk about the flanks here, Justin. So Wallum versus Totland, if you're going to have possession in this match, Wallum to me is more valuable than Totland, especially when there's a right winger that truly plays right wing, because that's what Totland does, is he plays right wing when you play Cedric Toyshirt at right wing, because Cedric Toyshirt's not running the right channels at all. He's coming centrally. When you have Sangbin up there, you can allow to have a right back potentially that has more possession, more quality on the ball, not necessarily just running up and down the pitch. For, Padelford or, Wallum on that side, I think Padelford complements a guy like Celio when he plays left wing, because Celio can run in behind, but he prefers ball at the feet, taking his guy on 1v1. And then Padelford can do the underlaps, overlaps, either, free up maybe when Celio gets doubled down on, or just give him some more time and space to operate in. So we've got options. I think it's been identified now. I think Critch kind of knows to tailor those fullbacks based on, the type of matchup. So I saw some good things in the first half. Those first 15 were a little bit scary, I'm not going to lie, right? I mean, you could just tell, even though it's preseason and they've been training for a couple of weeks now, the pre-programmed sort of passing sequences and the off-the-ball runs that Villa were making, I'm jealous, right? Like, I wish we had that sort of chemistry and that sort of, ball know-how, because these guys, intimately knew how each other liked to play and where they want to go. And if I pass it here, this person goes there, I go here. And it was so obvious. And it was almost kind of slipping in that first 15. I think we were a little bit nervy as well, but then we kind of crept back in and we got a little more foothold. We generated a couple of shots, maybe a couple of shots on target, and it wasn't awful. I thought the first half was relatively even post maybe 15, 30, maybe 20 minutes in.
Yeah, I would say the first 15, 20 minutes, we were joking around with producer Lou. It's just like, I'm not kidding. I think they had 6 corners in the first 10 minutes. And like shots, not a whole lot of shots on goal, but actually shots ripped just off goal. But Jake, I want to quickly just share screen on their goal, because this needs to be cut out regardless if it's Aston Villa or the MLS. Look at where the ball is here with Hartel and where he passed it to Leuven. Leuven is 7 yards from Hartel. We got to get away from this of thinking that I don't care if it's against Aston Villa or against an MLS team. There's no need for Hartel to be giving the ball to Leuven here when he's in the center of a Aston Villa triangle. And ultimately, this is what causes our turnover. Look how open Orozco is here to Baumgartel, or if Hartel even wants to spin out and play it to Padelford. But look, plays it to Leuven. Leuven takes a touch, tries to get back to Hartel. It's not on his correct foot. Hartel tries to take a touch, pass it into Ostrak. Not the great spot either. Look at this. There's 4 guys as we're trying to play around this, trying to play tic-tac-toe in our own defensive third. And then watch how quickly Aston Villa turns this over and puts it in the back of our net. I think that needs to be absolutely cut out of here. I understand that Leuven's trying to find the game. He's been out for a little bit. You're trying to find the ball at your feet. You do not need to be within 6 yards of receiving a pass from somebody else on our team that is very well capable of circulating the ball.
I agree. That was a hospital pass to Hartel. It was a hospital pass that Hartel played to Ostrak. And Ostrak, I hated it because, on the stand, I like Ostrak. I hated that he had to kind of wear that one because he played that final pass, but that was the only pass available to him. So, I mean, it's kind of a fact of the matter there. But I agree, Justin. I think with that duo, also think about when we got carved open, Ostrak and Leuven were off page sometimes as well. You saw Leuven look at him like, where were you, or how are you not dropping deeper to cover for me if I'm committing forward? Those are 2 aggressive central midfielders that have, I would say, of the 2, Ostrak and actually no, I'll give them both. Those are definitely more of your 8 to 10s than they are your 8 to 6s, right? Like both of them like to get forward and have a little fun contributing up the pitch. And when you play them both, you do have to consider that we will be carved open sometimes. And there is no one standing in front of that back 4 because no one naturally likes to do that of those 2. So I think it's ballsy. It's bold. I heard it from Critch in the press conference that he just really encouraged the guys. Yeah, it's Aston Villa, but go out there, play your game. There will be danger, but we can possess the ball. We have quality in the ball. And so I guess where I'm going with Critch is it wasn't like, hey, let's try to go out and win this game. And, we might just fizz balls over the top, use our pace to see if we can get lucky one of these times. He encouraged the guys to go out and play as if they normally would play, but against a higher pressing, higher quality sort of attack of guys that are much more, again, aligned and have a lot better chemistry together on when to press and what those triggers might be. So I encourage and I appreciate the audacity. I'll even go as far to say that, that we didn't really have too much respect to give them in that first half. But again, it also shot us in the foot and gave them that goal.
Yeah, but Jake, I will also say that on as far as like allowing guys to play how they usually play, we did well here on our goal. Look at this press. I mean, a little bit too high up, but if you see, here's where it comes over, and you can see Simon Betcher absolutely going after the center back as he receives a tough pass, and then here's where the turnover occurs, and then watch Durkin. Talk about a hit stick. And like I will say, yeah, probably a foul most of the times. The ref has been letting that play the entire time. Guy goes down. Everybody in Aston Villa is like, what the absolute hell is going on? And a great, just calm, cool, collected finish by Toyshirt, which, Jake, I'm just going to say, hopefully that helps turn him around because, good God, that could really need it going forward. And the fact that he has not done much for us recently as of late. And I would like to see just maybe it's a little bit of Steph Curry, seeing the ball go through the net. And I'd like to see him get a little bit more confidence. Yes, it's a friendly, but it was against a top-tier team and a great finish.
No, I agree. I hope that really brings some confidence back into him. And Critch mentioned in the press conference as well that they had some individual sessions with him to kind of talk through, his role and how we can kind of move forward from here, because it just has not been a season to remember for Toyshirt. But yeah, scoring against Aston Villa, that might help a little. And it is a friendly, it is an exhibition match, but goals are goals. Two guys that like to score goals, and that's part of who they are. So I like to hear that from Critch too, that they're working on this with him individually, because you got to find value in Toyshirt, either here or make sure that you bring some sort of value here so you can find the next home for him if it's not here, because he's been very invaluable. And I say invaluable, very not valuable to us this season, just because we haven't gotten much from him. He doesn't contribute much in possession or on the ball, and he's supposed to score those goals, and he has not been banging them home this year. But Justin, really quick here, are you going to play the replay again of this goal from? I like the press. It's so bold. Look at this, man. There's 4 attackers on their 4 defenders that are in the 18. And that was part of the second half that Critch came out with, is like, guys, let's bring on energy. Let's bring on a high press. Let's see if we can force one out. This is a City 2023 goal.
Yeah, Jake, the only thing I wanted to replay is because watch, this is an absolute, this happening against us, we'd be up in arms screaming. Yeah. Watch Durkin. This hit stick is just just an absolute run through from that angle. So yeah, we get away with one there, but hey, it's fine.
No, and you're right though. It was consistent with how the match was called as well. That wasn't
Yeah.
shocking because that's how the ref was letting things go last night. So I think it was consistent. Kudos to Toy Shirt, and we get that goal. But the energy is something I wanted to talk about in that second group because they had so much more of it. And I think it's when you bring on that youth and the guys that are the second half team, right? That they weren't the first choice to come on with all the quality. So they play like it. They play hungry. They play like they want to earn contracts. They want to earn minutes. And I cannot speak more highly of anyone that came out in that second half other than McSorley. He was everywhere last night. I had to make a comment a couple times to you guys just to make sure you're all seeing the same thing because it was quality. He was holding the ball under immense pressure from some defenders. He was making great runs. He was switching width. He was going side to side wherever the ball needed to go. He was actively putting his hand up, calling for the moment was not too big for him. And for a young player like that hasn't seen much time with the first team this season, that's what you want to see. If you're Critch, if you're Lutz, is guys that want to seize the moment and be a part of it and work and earn their way into the first team to make it impossible for me to ignore what they're doing out there. I thought he was immense last night. I do want to tip the cap to him because that is what you're supposed to do for any young kid out there. You want to earn minutes. You want to earn respect. Do what McSorley did last night.
Yeah, honestly, Jake, it reminds me of when we first got Simon Betcher, or if you go back to when we had a Jose Kojima, when they get out there and they just want to be a workhorse, they're going to do whatever they can to fight, win the ball. It's not just on the ball, it's off the ball, making runs, talking to your guys. I think he had some constructive criticism for some of the guys. You could see it in his body language, but it wasn't like throwing your arms up in the air frustration. It was truly like, hey, I'm making this run. Find me next time. All right, I'm going to go get back on the ball. We're going to do this again. I kind of wish I would have saw him play through the rest of the night. Yes, he got subbed off like the 86, but I thought he was the one that truly deserved to be out there. And I'd like to see more of him. It's a guy that I feel like has been not as on the list as far as guys that we're looking to see when you think about a Joyner or you think about some of these other guys that have been coming up and down and playing through. But McSorley's like, he could probably do without. And maybe it's just his body size, his style, whatever. I think he's been an absolute workhorse, and he's deserving of a spot that's been at least on these last, 8 or 10 games that we have left. I'd like to at least see him as a sub, if not a starter, on a game or two.
I think that performance alone gets him at least another couple of call-ups, if not for this next match against Nashville. I would be shocked because City 2 is in such a good spot. City 2 is absolutely blowing it up this season in MLS Next Pro. They're on an insane unbeaten streak. We probably need to talk a little bit more about them as well because we're seeing those products make their way into the first team. Tyson Pierce, we're talking about McSorley, we're seeing Joyner, we're seeing Orozco. All these guys have been playing for a very well-oiled machine that Critchley was in charge of, now Hack is in charge of, and they are still flying. So if there's one bright spot you want to put in this season is that now we are seeing the kids. We're seeing them almost break into the first team or force their way through to earn more minutes, earn contracts. And I'm happy about it. I think that really is, the point of being some of these clubs is to develop your players, develop your youth. We were supposed to get that with Olaf. We didn't get it. Critch is definitely championing that. And he's seen these guys more intimately being that coach. So I love to see it. The last thing I wanted to call out in the second half too, Justin, was we saw the debut of Falou Fall. And wrist brace and all, apparently Critchley said he has a little crack in the bone. That's why he's wearing that brace right now. It should be another couple of weeks, he said, for the brace, but he's ready to go in terms of playing. And basically got off the plane, 2 days ago, hops on the pitch, gives 45 last night. And yeah, there were some moments of some rust here and there, but there were some moments of a left-footed center back that is extremely comfortable playing through the lines to the attack. And he did that on multiple occasions last night. That's not something you can say about a lot of our center back core. And that is something that I think he will bring to this team that we sorely need. I think my future, Justin, if everyone's healthy, a Fall and Kessler left center back, right center back duo, both of those guys left-footed, right-footed, and can advance the ball forward with their feet confidently and accurately, we'd be in a really good spot if Fall really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Jake. I was trying to find this video. I think it was Rocio that put it out there. Let me see if I can share my screen. But the pass that he made here was just a pass that we saw Orozco try to make a while back. It's not going to let me do it because we're on. There we go. Little Twitter action. But look at this pass as he receives this here, and look who he's trying to find all the way up to the top to Toy Shirt. A perfect line breaking pass as he's in the last last of our line, and he makes a pass all the way to the back of their line, which just absolutely beats anything in the midfield. And then we're allowed to just have a ball kind of running in and making a move there. Yeah, I saw some rust, as to your point. He tried to play a couple long balls that were absolutely just skied. But I think he looked great. It is just kind of a little bit funny that he just automatically shows up and has a wrist brace, even though we haven't seen anything on him overseas. But you know what? I'll take it. And I think we had a couple people that actually DM'd us like from over there and like, hey, you're going to love this guy. They might be more high on him than I am, saying he's going to be a top player in the league in the next 2 years. And then we're going to sell him to a top 5 league. Like, fine. If that's the end, if that's what actually happens, I would love to have teams calling for us and we can actually then make some money on that. But I would rather just keep him long term because he's an exciting 21-year-old with great potential that's just untapped at this point.
No, I would agree. I wanted to say one more thing on the fall thing, because Critch was cracking me out because they asked, like, what's the deal with the wrist? And he said, yeah, it's a crack on the wrist. And he's like, I do want to say it happened before he got here, which it got me going. I love that, like, now it's a little more meta, the whole joke about how poor we are at managing and having our players get injured. He almost just scraped up against it right there at that comment, but it's not going to hold him back from playing. So that makes me excited about what could happen here in Nashville, because Justin, like you said, we have a break now. I think he mentioned there'd be some rehab today and then maybe training on Friday, but the weekend they're off and they'll begin next week as sort of, again, a normal type of week where they roll up to match day and they're sequencing of activities and practices and whatnot, kind of ramping up the intensity and then ramping down as they get closer to the match. Because again, Nashville is at home on August 9th, Saturday. And, Nashville has a game between now and then playing against Aston Villa this Saturday at 4 p.m. So they'll be slightly less rested, probably not going to make too much of a difference. But right now, Justin, we have 10 days off of games while Leagues Cup begins and really that group stage really ensues. And we have the ability to kick back, recover, and hopefully go and just pound Nashville with something they haven't or won't be expecting from a bottom table Western Conference team.
Yeah, we'll be getting back with you guys next week as far as a preview for that. But I hope everybody enjoys this weekend. A nice weekend off from City and City 2. So as you already mentioned, Jake, City 2 is the Supporter Shield winner right now in first place of entire MLS Next Pro with 43 points through 19 games played. That has them as 13 wins, 4 losses, and 2 draws. They are unbeaten in their last 10. They do not play again this weekend either. They play next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Against the Vancouver Whitecaps, number 2 team, who is currently 6th in the Western Conference. So looking to make that unbeaten streak move to 11 games. So huge shout out to those guys. It's great to see that we have a farm system that is at least going strong when the first team is not playing as well. And usually you'd be like, oh, is that because we're sending guys down? It's like, no, we're pulling up as many City 2 guys. And they're still being able to, if you think about that from a teaming perspective, Jake, that's tough. It's like you're City 2, your team is struggling. So your first team is pulling guys from your team, and yet you're still producing and you're still getting results. That's awesome from them. So huge shout out to them. It's been awesome to kind of see and follow with them this season.
I will agree. My last thing I want to talk about, just because it's going on right now, so keep an ear and an eye out, is just make sure you're following Tom Bogert on X, on Twitter, because it's transfer season. Not as much for us recently. I haven't seen too many rumors, but there's a lot of things flying around now, including some really high profile with Thomas Muller to Vancouver looking all but done, which is really exciting. Matt Turner on a loan from Lyon back to New England Revolution, where he made his name. Rob Holding, former Arsenal product, going to Colorado Rapids. Rodrigo De Paul, just won the World Cup with Messi in 2022, coming to Miami. No idea how they're working this out in terms of the finances, but it's really exciting. And it reminded me, Justin, of how stupid this discovery list is that every team has. I cannot explain how dumb this is, but I will make a comparison for those that don't know what it is. But essentially, I think every team gets 3 or 5 players they can put on their discovery list, and multiple teams can't have the same person. So it's a one-of-one type thing. So I think we have Sargent on ours, and we have probably another 2 or another 4 on ours. We know we have Sargent's rights. So that just gives us the first right to, conversate with that player if they do want to come to MLS. And if they don't want to come to St. Louis, but we have their rights, a team has to negotiate with us to buy those rights. Think of Marco Reus. Charlotte had his discovery rights. They had to pay Charlotte, the Galaxy did, about $400,000 or $500,000 just so they could have the rights to negotiate and sign him. It is the most absurd financial mechanism, in my opinion. I don't know everything about it, but Justin, I equate it to, you're in high school, you're in grade school, and your buddy calls dibs on their crush. And it's like, okay, well, Have you ever spoken to them? Because I also think they're cute. I would also like to speak to them. This literally was my brother like a couple of years ago. He's like, yeah, there's this girl that I like, but my friend said that he also like thought she was pretty cute, and like he said it first. And I'm like, this is so dumb. Like that guy's never spoken to her. He has no plans on doing so, but because he uttered her name, now we're not going to go pursue that because he has the rights. And that's legitimately what we're doing as a league. I cannot believe this still exists. But that's what's blocking Mueller right now because Cincinnati has his rights and they have not given the green light to give a deal for Vancouver to do so. So Vancouver will have to fork over hundreds of thousands just to sign Thomas Mueller, which is going to be cool. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, the MLS just can't get out of their own way when it comes to signings like this or allowing our City 2 guys to come up. And like Joyner already had his number of caps or appearances with us and all this crap, Jake, is absolutely ridiculous. So you can see that the MLS is trying to make moves and change to a fall spring schedule, which we've already talked about last night is too late considering the World Cup's next summer. So a little behind the times, but I'd like for them to get out of this whole monopoly kind of the game of this, because it's like every time you draw a new card, it's a new rule that's being added that makes zero sense, just theoretically or just common sense when it comes to soccer. So I'd like for them to move away from this completely. And then lastly, Jake, quick shout out to Underdog. Use code BallWatching, sign up, get up to $1,000 in bonus cash.
Absolutely. And a shout out to our friends at Hoffman Brothers. It's finally the week where you probably don't need as much support, but that is not to say that your AC has not been cooking on overdrive these last couple weeks in this extreme heat advisory. So for any of your home needs under the roof, heating, cooling, blink and you miss it, it'll be winter before we know it here, Justin. Make sure you get your tune-up scheduled. Make sure you're always checking on the home systems to keep you safe, warm, comfortable, whatever that is. And Hoffman Brothers should be your vendor of choice for those commercial and residential. So 314-664-3011 or visit online at hoffmanbros.com. As Justin mentioned, he'll be back with you all next week with probably one of our special guests, one of our analysts. I may not be, as we will be preparing for the birth of my second. So I hope to see you all here soon. Probably a different man, maybe a little more sleepy. But we shall see, and I hope everyone has a great rest of week and a little bit of a chillaxing, week or so before the lead up to Nashville. So in the meantime, all for City.
All for City.